Hello everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome to this AFK journey video. So I did a pull stream as well as playtesting stream for Soren earlier, and in this video I'm gonna do the first impression as well as give my opinions about this unit, having playtesting him for the past 1 hour plus on the various game modes available. Before I give my first impressions from the playthrough, I'm going to talk about his skill set briefly, right? I'm not going to go word for word, I'm just going to describe it. So for those of you guys who are interested in his kit, right, you guys can visit the collection page to just read up on the numbers as well as specific description itself. So for the first skill, Ultimate Whirlwind Swing is basically an AoE skill where he jumps to the area where there will be the most enemies that will be affected by collision and swings his stick to push them back, deal damage. So there's one phase, deal damage, right, knock the enemy back 1 tile, and if the enemy that it hits, right, collides with an ally, enemy, object, wall, or maybe the edge of the battlefield, they will get additional damage and they will be stunned for 2.5 seconds. So this is a AoE damage skill with massive numbers if it's able to satisfy the collision condition. And in auto mode, it's also really good because this skill prioritizes targeting the tile that will cause the most enemies to collide. So it's quite good in arena specifically as well, because if this skill doesn't have this prioritization, then it could be very bad for him because he could just be casting the ultimate at one target. So being able to prioritize, being able to move to a tile where there's most enemies that will be affected by the skill, this is actually a pretty decent ultimate there. So very good damage. Further increase in levels increases the effect, right? If the target knocks back by this skill collides, you can stun another enemy, so you can increase the stun duration in the enemy's team as well as increase the collision damage. So the second skill, Repel Sweep, he is able to swing his weapon to do damage and knock the enemy back, and if the enemy that is hit by him collides with anything, right, he will also take additional damage and further stun. So from the first and from the second skill as well as the ultimate, you guys can see that his kit relies a lot around repositioning the enemy to force them to hit another enemy, hit a terrain, hit a rock, hit a tombstone, hit the wall, or just reposition them, make them out of place, and then stun them and do more damage and control them from there. So that's what he wants to do, right? His kit relies a lot around these pushing mechanics. And for the third skill itself, Deflecting Swing, so this one is interesting in a sense. Whenever he gets a damage or attack that hits him and the damage dealt exceeds 10% of his HP, right, it will reduce that damage upwards to a 90% damage reduction. So effectively he is able to sort of survive almost any hit because 90% is very big, and it resets the cooldown of his second skill, Repelling Sweep, and this effect can be triggered once every 7 minus 1 second. Okay, so this part, right, right now at where I am for him, I'm at level 4 Deflecting Swing. So without this additional skill power gain, it's a 6-second cooldown. So I think if this skill is able to go down to 3 seconds, which is the most optimal skill power you can get, right, 3-second cooldown on Deflecting Swing will make him a decent semi-carry. So right now I think at 6 seconds it's a little bit long, but if you can reduce it further to 3 seconds, we could definitely see some effect about him. Okay, so we could definitely see more usage as a semi-tank. Then we have Hero Focus, which increases haste by 20 during battle. So I don't need to explain too much. Thus, Rejuvenation allows him to gain haste, gains HP recovery, gains energy per second for 12 seconds when his HP ratio is below 60%. 60% is very easy to hit, and this effect can only be triggered once per battle. The second part of the ability, Soren removes all active control when this skill is triggered. It can be triggered repeatedly in a single battle with a cooldown of 25 seconds. Okay, so this part, it's a little bit questionable because on top, right, the ability does Rejuvenation can only be triggered once per battle, but subsequently there's this removal of active control which can be triggered repeatedly in a battle. So I think the second line is a little bit useless because I think the buff is the major part, right? CC removal is important, but honestly speaking, I think the haste, the HP recovery, the energy recovery is more important in most cases. So if you level up the skill further, you increase the haste amount as well as the HP recovery. So that's for the EX weapon skill. The Supreme Plus skill increases the knockback distance of repel sweep to 2 tiles when deflecting swing is triggered. Dealing extra damage equals to 50% of the block damage. So deflecting swing is this one, right? So this is the repel sweep. So the Supreme Plus skill buffs the second and the third skill, right? In terms of the knockback duration, the damage that it reflects, as well as like all the combo potential, right? The stunning, the collision and stuff, cause you're able to move the enemies by 2 tiles. Okay, seasonal skill is Kruger's Battle Rush, which increases his own haste by 21 for 10 seconds after each ultimate cast. Okay, so before we continue talking, I think this skill is actually a good skill, but it is not a very good skill on Soren, because later on, as I talk about the unit and showcase some footages, you guys will realize that this unit's ultimate actually charges up a little bit slow, at least from our initial observations. So personally, I feel that Battle Rush is probably not a skill for him. I think a skill that gives him like defensive mechanism, or a skill that further boosts his damage output is very, very good, right? But unfortunately, we didn't get that. Although this skill is good, but it's not that good on Soren specifically. So that's just some first impression. And one more thing about him is that there's actually a life drain on this unit. So I'm not sure how big this 10% life drain is, but every point of life drain gives you 1% damage absorption from the enemy. So this is 10% of his damage. So the more damage he do, the more HP he can recover. So units like Coco is going to be really good on him, because Coco gives him damage reduction, allows him to have increased resilience, and then he's able to deal damage and then heal back himself. So that's one thing that you guys need to consider for him. And in terms of the general stats, I think he's okay. Like, it's a very rogue-like stats distribution. A little bit tanky there, but based on the initial testings, he still die pretty easily when you're facing a proficiency deficit in the AFK challenges pushing. So that's something that you guys want to know. I'll talk more about it later on as I run through all the various replays from all the testing on stream, so you guys can see for yourself. So with that, let us move on to the first impression and initial thoughts. Okay, so for the testing itself, right, I didn't have the magic charm for Soren yet. So I think for Soren's case, this unit could definitely be used in PvE content pushing. One potential team that we can run him with is a team where you're able to keep him alive while buffing him up, but with units like Scalita, with units like Coco, protecting him with Torrent, and then maybe you put in Antandra or even Smokey for additional heals, right? That will be a team where you can run him with, because this unit can actually be a solo carry himself when he's able to deflect enemies hit, when he's able to push the enemies towards the wall, because the stun duration is quite long and he could definitely have the potential to lock the enemies down. However, in the stages where I'm at right now, the power deficit is a little bit too big. So when the deficit is really, really big, being a melee unit, it's quite tough, because he dies off pretty easily, right? Because I don't have my level 3 skill power unlocked. So the cooldown of the deflecting swing is 6 seconds. So that's a little long. So in terms of survival right now, from my initial observation, is that he's not surviving that well in the high deficit stages. So he has potential, but obviously if you're talking about whether or not he's good at the base level, probably not yet. So that's for the PvE side of things. For the arena side of things, I think this unit is definitely a good unit in arena, because in terms of arena, there's a lot of teams where he's good against, right? There's a lot of units which are good in arena that's really immobile. So against units that doesn't move, if he's able to push them against the wall, it's pretty much game over, because he's able to stun lock them. He's able to lock them down with the ultimate as well as the second skill in terms of the stun duration. But one thing about him is the same issue which is like there for the PvE side of things, is his survival. Because yes, he does have deflecting strike. So deflecting strike is a massive part of keeping him alive, because it's a massive damage reduction. But without the seasonal abilities, right, without any skill skill power down, 6-second cooldown might be a little long, right? So that's something which is a little bit sad, but the thing is, if you're able to abuse the seasonal part, if you're able to get the skill power to lower the deflecting swing all the way down to 3 seconds, that's where you can definitely see him surviving a lot better and then doing what he wants to do. So his job is to survive and then hit the enemy as close to the walls as possible and then stun lock them and do damage to them there. So that's for the arena side. Definitely has a position, but right now still a little bit lacking, a little bit lackluster in terms of the bossing compartment, as he's not able to actually control the bosses, he's not able to knock the bosses against the wall. He loses quite a bit of his kit in terms of the damage output, but there's actually a few boss which could, I would say, like be used. He could definitely be used there because of the deflecting strike. So for deflecting strike, he's able to take damage and then deal damage back to the boss, right? So if the bosses, they hit really hard, then the boss is able to trigger his deflecting strike, which will give him more damage. So for that, we will need a few more days of testing to see, but for now, in terms of like just like normal hitting the boss, doing damage, he's a little bit lackluster inside the Dream Realm. So based on initial impressions, should you spend your resources on him? The answer right now is a no, because for his kit itself, it has a lot of potential, but it seems very lackluster at the very start. This is without the Magic Charms addition. So I think with the Magic Charms addition, things could change out. Specifically, you want to focus on the ultimate power as well as skill power side, because he wants to abuse his skill as much as possible to be disruptive while doing damage at the same time. So we have to wait until the respective charms, we have to wait until the charm sets unlock in order to see his full potential. But if you're somebody who's free to play, if you're looking for the most meta or high value unit out there, he is probably not the unit, at least based on first impressions. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe in order to see more AFK journey contents from the channel, and I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.